And Babel in ancient Akkadian literally means the gate of the gods, right? And so there's these inscriptions about how they were believing that they were creating this gateway to the gods. In modern terminology, it was a wormhole. It was a stargate, if you will.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And they were they were trying to connect between these two so that they could come and go, and there could be open communication between gods and humans. This is an ancient inscription. That's Nebuchadnezzar there on the right, and it's this tower that he is reconstructing. And so there's an inscription that goes with this. It says that he did not build this. Nebuchadnezzar's words, right? But it had been there for 42 ages, whatever an age is, and it had fallen into disuse, right? It had just fallen apart. But people 42 ages before him had built this thing. So I'm thinking, well, gee, Nebuchadnezzar was in Babylon. He's rebuilding a tower in Babylon. Maybe this is the Tower of Babel. I don't see why not.
That
Basically,
seems pretty obvious.
It seems obvious to me. It's a ziggurat. What is a ziggurat? A ziggurat is nothing more than a connection point between heaven and earth, right? Now, they didn't think that the earth had a dome over it. They didn't think the earth was flat, and they were trying to touch the dome. What they were trying to do is actually build a gateway to the gods. And Babel in ancient Akkadian literally means the gate of the gods, right? And so there's these inscriptions about how they were believing that they were creating this gateway to the gods. In modern terminology, it was a wormhole. It was a stargate, if you will.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And they were they were trying to connect between these two so that they could come and go, and there could be open communication between gods and humans. And I think that's why God took such radical action by coming down personally, or whatever he did exactly, but he confused the languages. Because this was a complete inflection point for human history, right? This was, when God does something, he's like, okay, I'm going to flood the world. It's because there was something really bad that could have happened. When God came down at the Tower of Babel, it's because something really bad could have happened, right? And I think God's like, I got to put the kibosh on that. This is going to wreck us if I don't do something. And so he did, and so I think it would make complete sense if the Antichrist were like, you know what? We're going to get that thing going again. Now, it could involve CERN, it could involve a whole bunch of technological things, but I also think that there's going to be a literal place in Iraq, in Babylon, and I think there's going to be a lot of reconstruction, and we can make these things in fairly short order. It doesn't take that long to rebuild some of these things, at least the facades of them. I mean, if you go to Vegas, you have, you've got a pyramid, you've got the Eiffel Tower, you've got New York. I mean, it's all right
Liberty,
there.
yeah. So.
It's incredible, I mean, and so I think there's going to be a resurgence of the ancient gods. I think we're already seeing a resurgence of the ancient gods. For some people, the ancient gods never went away. I mean, they can hardly wait until these things are put out and manifest in open in daylight.
It's not right out of the realm of possibility either. I mean, if people really want to help Iraq, for example, rebuild, and they're not really ever rebuilt since the war there, I mean, what would be a better way than to create a tourist attraction?
Exactly.
Right? I mean, that's what is happening in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Right, with Neom.
Yep.
I mean, building roads like we've heard from Miles Jones, Dr. Miles Jones. There are roads pretty much going right past Mount Sinai now.
Right.
And they actually found artifacts 8 feet away from the road. I mean, they just missed them when they pull the plow through.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like that close. And so yes, of course, this is going to be a center of technology. They want to be the most technologically advanced city in the world, Neom. So, to have that as Babylon, not that far out of the realm of possibility. I mean, again, the world can change pretty quickly. I think we've all kind of come to realize that. We all think that the center of power has to be the United States or New York City with the UN, but I think that can all change. Before the UN, it used to be the League of Nations. Yeah. Why could it not change again? So in the book, we have Alexander Therian creating what's called the Babel Initiative. Basically, hey, let's all put aside our differences, let's come together and let's all hug, hold hands and all this different stuff. Right? Yep. And so Babylon, I think, is going to become the center of world power. I think, countries will eventually sign up for this Babel Initiative idea.
and they'll be like, this makes so much sense, especially in light of the destruction of Damascus, with a threat of nuclear possibility. I mean, we've got to do something radical.
So now just to stop you there. So again, you think this is going to happen in reality, and yet it's in the book too.
It's in the book.
So it's fiction for now.
It's fiction for now. But again, everything that was written as fiction was very well researched.
Yeah.
All right. And so, even the characters that we came up with, we really wanted to present them to the very best of our ability in their cultural relevance and how they might think. Even some differences between, some of the different factions within Islam. We did our best to try to, really keep those differences so that people could appreciate that.
But I mean, it's not out of character to do that. I mean, like in movies, we see all this all the time where it's called I was looking for my notes where I'd written that down. I'd forgotten the term, but predictive programming.
Right.
So movies are specifically put out there as hints from those who maybe know something's going to happen.
That's right.
And that was just in a movie. That can't be real. And then
or just watch The Simpsons and like,
yeah, right, yeah.
How in the world do they know these things? But
so this is sort of the antithesis of that. This is like predictive programming, but hey, this could actually happen, and this is pushing you toward biblical things, not things of the world.
Well, again, the Bible gives us the bullet points of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to put a little bit of flesh on this skeleton, right? We don't know 100%, but we're like, well, based on this, and this, and this seems pretty plausible, right? And that Babylon should be rebuilt. I think that's the best and easiest solution.
If you can build Neom in the center of the desert,
yes,
why not next door in Iraq? I mean,
exactly.
Really.
And look, if you're a trillionaire and you got a bunch of money to throw around and you sort of want to do your own thing, I think it makes a lot of sense because Iraq is relatively impoverished, but they have some decent resources, right? They're not third world, but they're not first world either. They could certainly use an infusion of cash. And I think if you had such a thing, a person could create their own state, essentially. They could essentially buy out the people, not necessarily politically, but giving gifts, by building infrastructure. And you become the de facto mayor of your own city because you built the thing. And people become emboldened to you because you gave them so much money. And so I think this could easily happen. And then there's, of course, the whole technological thing, right? And so what we sort of speculate in the book is that there'll be a lot of discoveries that will come together. A lot of ancient wisdom will be unearthed. And then it's going to be in the Babylon Knowledge Center. Okay.
Okay. So they borrow from the time of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel.
The Nephilim, and there's genetic discoveries, and there's ancient manuscripts that nobody's ever seen.
Borrow something from modern Neom, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And on the walls, I think you're going to have all of the ancient gods in all of their glory, if you will. But again, I think this is where it's all going to happen because this is where it all started. Right? It was Nimrod who established Babylon. He created that city. And so, again, we've talked about Nimrod before in previous shows, but Nimrod, excuse me, Mr. Let's Rebel, he was known as Ninurta in the ancient world. Guess what? He was actually the son of Enlil. So Enlil is Satan. So according to the ancient Near East version, Ninurta, he's the son of Enlil. He's given the Tablet of Destinies, by which he rules the world. He's a demigod. He quite possibly was Gilgamesh, another name for him. There's lots of dots you have to connect, but you start looking at it like, oh, they're all kind of the same thing, And and I kind of teased this out in the last show we had, but Gog. Okay, so get this, right? So talk about Gog and Magog, right? So the name Gog, it comes from Sumerian, Gug, all right?
Okay.
Gug comes from the word Ug, which is similar to Og, right? King Og of Bashan. It means death or enmity. It's one of the various names for Enlil, who is Satan, all right? So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Because I was trying to figure out, okay, where does Gog fit into this whole thing? It just means death or enmity. It's like an intensification of the name death or enmity. And where does death and enmity start? Genesis 3:15, right? I will cause enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. My mind is like blowing here, right? So I think Gog is none other than the beast. I think he is this hybridized being who's going to come. The Bible talks about him, but all that to say that you have this incredible culmination of ancient technology, ancient lore. It all started in Babylon, and I think that's where it's all going to go back to.
And we try and make it so complicated, but then you just go back to the word study, and all it means is enmity.
Yes.
How simple could it be? And sometimes we get so complicated, we don't see the simplicity of it. Yeah. So now you kind of mentioned the son of Satan, and that made me think, okay, wait a minute, I got to bring back to this. So is that the seed of Satan just as the seed of the woman? Is that what you see as the quote unquote seed?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Well, that's why the study of the Nephilim is important. Because there we see sort of a real world application, if you will, of where spiritual beings come down and they breed with terrestrial women, right? So how can you have this? And again, that's what I explored in Corrupting Image Volume 1. I was really trying to understand how you could have this. And it was amazing. I read this book by Dr. Werner Gett. In the beginning was information. And he had a series of axioms. And he said that information is a non-material entity that requires a physical medium. And it just blew my mind. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is incredible, right? So, you think about, take a seed, right? Take a watermelon seed. What's inside of that? You got the husk, you got the kernel, keep going. You get down to the chromosomes, you get down to the genes. Beyond that, you get down to the DNA. What's in that? You got nucleic acids. What's inside of that? Information, right? Information. How do you touch information? You don't. You can't touch it, and yet it's being stored in a physical medium, right? And don't we send little packets of information all day long when we're on our cell phones and our computers? We're sending packets of information, which we understand is just on, off, right? It's in that binary sense. In a DNA sense, it's a base 4 instead of a base 2, but it's still information. That's what a seed is information. So yes, Satan has information. So he simply needs some way to communicate that information into a physical medium.
Shalom, Torah fans. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Tap the subscription button and the bell icon. And I promise to update weekly with in-depth biblical research. Be sure to download the new michaelrood.tv app for both mobile and home devices for even more commercial-free content.